Hello and welcome for the fifth time in a row. We're doing the live cast to introduce to you my new album, MAISON MELODY, and tonight is the one before last. Tomorrow is the national holiday over here where I reside in Amsterdam, Holland, so we'll do a timeout there, but coming Friday it will be the grand finale with the last song I want to debut on these live casts for you. And I'll do that in a special situation where I'll show you how it got made on the spot. However, tonight I want to share with you two of the songs, number 8 and number 9, out of 10. But before I do that, I just want to tell you that the album is going to be out on CD now as well. And if you're interested, you can send us an email to office@stevenemmer.com and give us your postal details, and we will be sending you the CD whenever ready. And it's my gesture to you, so there is no expense needed, because we're after all together now, still in this peculiar situation of the coronavirus. So tonight I want to kick off with number 8, and number 8 is actually the one where I would like to tell a little extra about. Not very long, but might be interesting for you to hear. That I don't know if you have that experience in music, that once in a while you hear something just as a listener yourself, and you don't know the musician, the composer, or the band, or the orchestra, and then suddenly it strikes you as lightning. So that's nothing to do with something religious. It's a slightly spiritual affair, I do say. So to cut a long story short, this is what happened to me. And that's when I heard the music of a composer from Barcelona in Spain, and his name is Federico Mompou. And if that doesn't ring a bell, then that is because he was a very modest man himself. In fact, he was so modest that he didn't dare going on a stage playing piano with his own compositions for an audience, though he was equipped to do that. He was qualified. He was a very sophisticated piano player as much as a composer. However, he took lessons in Paris. He's from early 20th century, and in Paris he learned to admire, in his turn, the music of somebody we talked about last night. One of the pieces of mine got inspired, as I told you last night, by the Velvet Gentleman, as his nickname goes, but his real name was Erik Satie. So Erik Satie was an example, an influence on the composer I want to pay tribute to tonight, called Federico Mompou. Federico Mompou was influenced by Erik Satie, yet gave it his own twist, which is something I hope to do in my turn, in my tribute to him tonight. However, he was known mainly for his piano works, which were like miniatures, not overdeveloped, almost naive, but in actual harmonic sense, very complex, yet not with a lot of pretense. So, as I said, he's a modest man, he was. Now, to jump into this story, he was one of the composers who rooted his own music in a favorite piano chord he sported. I'll play that for you now. This is the chord. And he even gave his specific chord a nickname, Barri de platja. literally translated the beach quarter, which is, you know, in Barcelona, where he used to frequent the marina. But this chord he used in many, many compositions of his own. And when I heard that, I was immediately awake. I mean, we can do this type of chord. We've heard that so many times that you wouldn't even know who started it. But with this one, I would say it's not his invention, but he sort of took it one step up in integrating it in his music. So here it is once more. And this is where I thought my homage would start. Like I did with the Satie inspired track, the intro couple of chords are his, and then I make the progression, try to make the progression into my own, to turn it into something of my own, like Mompou did on his turn with Satie. So I started off with the chord, and I'll play that now for you, as I do every night. That started up the rough sketching of the idea. So that was my initial idea, to make my own melody based on his platja de barra chord. And after that section, which is the intro and the final result, I took it a step further with adding the string quartet. So let me play you how it's now turned out to become on the album. Meant as a homage to the great man. So, in the outro, just where we finished the track, that's where the chord returned. The starting point also closes this little homage. And I added a church bell to the chord. It's subtly underneath. You can hear it better, I guess, on a CD or something than over here on the laptop or smartphone. So I did that because his his grandparents used to own a clock factory, and he was in the area of Barcelona, and he was always attracted to the sound of his youth by making up harmonic combinations like church bells would do, or clocks in general. And the chord is partly based on that, so I thought it only fitting to add a real church bell to the outro. And to close the inside on this one, I can also add that when he passed away, his younger wife lived on much longer until she passed away in 2007, I think, top of mind. And this is where only later on in his house they found around 80 undiscovered works of his. And the world premiere of these undiscovered works for piano were performed by special permission for that of the Federico Mompou Fundación in Barcelona by a piano player from my hometown, from Amsterdam. His name is Marcel Worms. I mentioned him yesterday already as part of our lineup. And so, for me, that's full circle, because I invited Marcel, who did the undiscovered works for Mompou, to perform this piece for me on piano. So you've just heard Marcel playing on the piano, which I thought was the only right type of performer to do justice to the intentions of the late maestro. So that is the conclusion of track number 8 on the album. Now, before we move on, I always invite you to send in a few questions if you have any. I mean, it's not compulsive. It's just what if you care to know a little bit more about what I'm telling you or about the music. So feel free to do so. All these, this is more like a domestical memo. I'm telling you now that all these live casts, I mean, there's 5 in all, and there'll be one more on Friday. You can see them back at leisure on Facebook or on YouTube. We all post them back, so you'll be seeing them. But as soon as these live casts are finished on Friday, the next thing we have to offer you is, in fact, some making of video clips at this very same location, Steven Emmer Official on Facebook, where, for example, Marcel Worms, the piano player, the other piano player except apart from myself, will also talk about what he feels about this and what he thought about this project with this homage to Federico Mompou. And we'll also have interviews with the string players, with the guy who did the mixing of the album. So after the live casts are gone, you can still get yourself more familiar with the project if you wish by seeing those type of clips. So keep returning and you'll see where they are. Okay. Now the next song, next composition I have to say, is something with a history, because it's a piano melody which I've been playing for years on end. I don't know if people know that feeling as well, that, you know, sometimes you have ideas in your head that don't come out in the open that easily due to circumstance, but sometimes they linger on in your head and it's still there. So years ago I suddenly knew, hey, this is the right melody for a song instead of an instrumental composition, and I worked it out in such a way that it became a pop song. And the pop song was sung by a wonderful singer I've worked with called Liam McKay from Australia. And we made a song together of that melodical theme. And the song was called Mama's Mad. And that's on my International Blue album, 2 albums ago. But however, in reviewing all my work, which you do as a composer, as a craftsman, you also look back. What did I do again? Did I like it? Can it be improved upon? And the latter, I think, was the case with this one. So I reused it again. I mean, reusing your own material is, I think, permitted as an artist. That is, if you improve on it. So I did my best, and this is the theme that started it all. I'll play it live for you right now. Yeah, so that I thought is fitting for this purpose as well. It's a melody that sticks in my mind at least, and it kept on coming back. And now I've rearranged it and further developed the composition into a piece for piano and string quartet. And let's have a listen to it, how it's now available to you on the album. So that was number 9 on the album. So coming Friday, we're already arriving at the last track of the album, number 10. But with that one, I'll do some special session. Starting at the same time, right at the same location right here on Facebook, 7:15 local time, European time. And before we round up, I would like to still come back to my inspirational composer called Federico Mompou from Barcelona. That one French critic, music critic, in the early 1920s called him the one and only successor of Claude Debussy. And I tend to agree there. You don't hear him often being performed over here in where I live, but he has a steady type of almost cult type of reputation in the classical world worldwide, and his house is still there, except that there's now the foundation called after him residing in the house, and you can on request can visit the house when you're in Barcelona again. Keep that in mind. His masterpiece was called Musica Calada, literally translated the voice of silence. And let me now quickly bridge that notion of Mompou into my closing quote for tonight, which I got handed over by one of our viewers called Michiel Bakker. Thank you, Michiel. But the quote is by Aldo Huxley, and it says, "After silence, music comes closest to telling the untellable." And I think that is also what Mompou tried to express. And I'm only hoping to join that school of thought. And not being an American, I do, however, like to say thanks for sharing this moment with me. And tomorrow we're on a day off. Friday we'll be here last time live, and let's hope we see each other again right then. All right. Stay safe and have a good night.